Alright everybody, well, for those of you who don't know, our side yard used to look a lot different than it does now. It was covered in brush, which we're going to be doing a video hopefully soon, as soon as we have a capacity to put something together and upload it. But basically the whole process of redoing our side yard. And actually, this is a good example. So our land stops right where all the brush starts, basically. Actually, a little bit before it. This is what our side yard used to look like, minus the trees. All we had was one big dead tree that probably about 40 feet tall, totally dead, and we got that removed because this is the side of the house that both of our kids sleep on, and it was dead. So definitely a house destroyer size-wise. You can see how big the stump is. So that's one more task we have to get done. We have to get a stump grinder company or guy to come out and help us get this down to like a level surface. But yeah, so we went from that amount of bushes to a couple heaping piles, which we've been slowly burning off. You guys probably saw the update about what happened during that process of burning, but we are past it, and now we're going to be, for burning, we're going to be using our own fire pit, something we can kind of manage a little better. And then these logs are actually from the tree that we had cut down here, and kind of what we're doing with them is we're letting them rot, letting them break down. We're letting mushrooms kind of do half the work for us. You can see how big some of these pieces are. That's the size of my hand compared to the log. And in time we're going to probably try and utilize these like we have done elsewhere by burying the logs in the soil or breaking them down for firewood, burying that size, what have you. But yeah, so a lot of help has come into this from family and friends. You can see there's cardboard scattered everywhere. That's also been donated by family and friends and local coffee shops. And so yeah, our goal, our desire would be to cover the entire side in cardboard, and eventually whenever our turn comes, we want to get a large shipment of basically arborist mulch, basically just chipped up wood from a recent tree removal job. And the hope is that we could get enough to cover all of the cardboard in potentially 12 to 14 inches of mulch. That is basically the idea that we have had, and the only way we've seen that actually kills off or stops English ivy. I don't know if it actually kills it or if it's just dormant underneath, but this stuff, English ivy, it is basically my least favorite thing to deal with. Honeysuckle is up there, but we've kind of gotten a good strategy about how to stop all the honeysuckle. These stump 1, 2, 3 stumps of honeysuckle I drilled holes into and filled the holes up with Roundup, which I don't like using Roundup very much because of the damage to the microbiology in the soil itself, but sometimes it's kind of necessary to do a purge of some of the bad things, and then do what we can to revitalize the good things after the fact. One example is poison ivy. This whole patch here was thick with poison ivy, and obviously with little kids in the neighborhood, our own little kids, and a couple of neighbors who are really allergic, to us it's just not worth the hassle of a potential allergic reaction. we feel like we can be responsible in taking care of the soil and the microbiology, re-engaging it afterwards, that it would make more sense for us to just do a clean wipe. So there is some use of chemicals here, but we try to do it only when absolutely necessary, and that was definitely the case for this. So yeah, from here we want to do a total covering with cardboard. These pallets I can get into in just a second, but cover it up with a whole bunch of mulch and put our raised beds in. So and I go into a similar thing in a couple of the parts of a video that we want to put out of the update, but just to give you a little bit of a heads up now, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Hey, thanks for joining, Luce. This is great. I've never done this before. So yeah, our yard kind of looks like trash, and that's because, well, it is basically covered in trash, but it's all good trash. All this will break down really nicely. This was a new shipment of cardboard here, so we kind of put it out so that the elements would help us, but the idea is that we're going to peel off all the tape and any of the plastic, because down the road I don't want to be digging through my vegetable garden and be pulling out pieces of plastic with all my food. So just like we do nowadays with microplastics everywhere. Can I get an amen? Yeah, so also there's the highway, which I'm sure everyone can hear. This is great. But yeah, here's a nice usage of a tarp that we're actually, it's actually going really well. The idea is that we can change the shape of the garden a little bit. We put this, test plot out here with just the leaf mold compost that we got this year, and as you can tell, nothing worked. We kind of think that we needed to maybe amend the soil a little bit better. We needed to put a little more love into it. It got plenty of water. It was moist all the time. This mulch is compost is super good at keeping damp, but there's got to be some sort of nutrient deficiency here, because you can see, like, this lettuce is trying. It's doing its best. These spinaches, they got super tall and they're going to seed, but that's not what they're supposed to do right away. And also we have some like cold hardy plants in here. I believe these are either supposed to be broccolis or kohlrabis, which right now should be their season, and they're kind of pitiful, which is okay. This is a test plot. But because we put this here, it didn't make sense for us to have this like grass patch kind of come in and around. So basically this piece of land, or like this piece of the garden, is kind of enormous. After we got all the bushes cleared out, we kind of realized, like, holy moly, that's a lot of room for garden. And right now we only have that, that front piece way over there and a couple raised beds scattered throughout the back. But this will essentially, in raised beds alone, double our growing space, which we're planning to have like a raised bed along here, 2 deep and 3 rows. So 2 columns deep, 3 rows across. So 6 raised beds. And I believe they're around 7 feet long of each raised bed. And it's like it's a corrugated steel design, a slot in shape, so a rectangle with rounded ends, and it'll be about, I think, 18 to 24 inches tall. Part of the reason we wanted to do raised beds was to get the stuff off the ground a little bit to help us from having to bend over all the way onto the ground. Obviously 24 inches at most is still pretty low. We are also toying with the idea of purchasing one really nice, so these other 6 are going to be on the cheaper side, but one kind of a nice, expensive, tall, like almost 4 feet tall, round corrugated steel raised bed, and put that right here. And that would be like That's a big one right there. And I don't know if anyone has ever seen the guy Self-Sufficient Me on YouTube or follows him. He has a lot of those. So does Epic Gardening, Kevin from Epic Gardening. They both use the same kind of raised beds, and we have loved the idea of it, but we really, that's a little bit more than we're able to spend right now. So we might do one here. That'll be really special. We'll do the 6 in here, and long-term goal, this area right here would be a high tunnel. So a really simple design. We'd probably make a little box on the ground, wood frame, and bend some cattle panel down the length of the frame, and then cover that cattle panel with greenhouse plastic. So that would do a couple things for us. Extend the growing season for some plants, but also it would keep pests away. We had a really bad year this year, again, same as last year, with pests on our cucumbers. So far we've gotten a lot of cucumbers, but we could have like way more, because we get maybe like 4 or 5 from a plant, and then that plants just start get picked at by cucumber beetles, and then gets infected. And once it gets infected, basically all water flow to the plant stops, and it's only a matter of days till it's dead. Yeah, so that's a small update. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for joining along this whole journey that we've been having, Julia and I. It's been awesome. This past month has been kind of hard, so we haven't had a whole lot of capacity to talk to you guys and share, but it's a season thing. It's going to come and go as we have energy and capacity. Obviously the kids take a lot, and we are happy to pour into them. But we're also happy to be able to pour into this, and we want this to be a garden that we can reap many benefits from, not just for ourselves, but for people around us too. So, and another point, one last thing before I go here, we do want to put fruit trees along this hill line. And already we have 2 apple trees, which once we get this stump ground, which we're thinking about, maybe it might happen this week, who knows, we might put these apple trees in. And we want a whole bunch of trees, but we want apple, nectarine, cherry, more cherry and nectarine than apple, really. And then potentially we thought about and talked about persimmons. One second. Not only do we have a hospital or a highway right next to us, but there's a hospital like right over those trees, and helicopter traffic is pretty often. You can see that. Yeah, medevac comes over our house basically every hour and a half. But yeah, so maybe we talked about doing persimmon trees. It's a native to Ohio, and it's not a very common food, but the idea of doing native fruits and native vegetables and native plants has definitely become way more interesting to us. More and more, we're kind of, if it's native, if it kind of grew here, this is the natural environment for it. So it kind of makes sense intuitively that it should do well. And even if it doesn't do well, I think that at least it biologically has come to know this environment more than per se kiwis or lemons and limes, which we'd like to grow those too, but we might be fighting biology a little bit more on those. I don't even know if biology is the correct term there, but yeah, so that's the update. This is our lot. The pallets, those are going to be for plants in bags. So like a big 30-gallon bag, tote, more like it. We could do potatoes in it. We could do strawberries in it, but basically the pallets help the bags get off the ground a little bit, so the bottom of the bag doesn't get all nasty. Lets it breathe a little bit. The black trash bags in the back there, my mom's a wood turner, a woodworker. Actually, both my parents are, but so she's got a bunch of shavings, mostly maple, and I think a little bit of potentially ashwood. I'll have to check with her, but So we'll probably split that between helping mulch here and putting down in the chicken run to help get their feet a little dry because it's been super wet. So anyways, thanks for joining. I'm gonna walk over here to the other main garden and we can do just a little quick peek at how things are kind of ending out the season. Our marigold bushes are just like, I don't know, is it cold outside? Can't tell me because they're just massive. They smell incredible. It's almost violent how strong it is if you get down in there. Our rhubarb bush is just like, you cut me down all the way once, now I'm back. So we're gonna have to probably harvest that again. And this is Strawberry Lane for all of you who saw the video. All of the plants that we have planted so far have taken, and I think next year we're gonna be covered. We also put in a thornless raspberry bush. We're super excited for that to start fruiting and just blowing up. We took out our black raspberry, although one little strand made it, so we're going to donate that one to a friend. And then I think this is going to be the last year for the thorned red raspberry bush too. So we'll have to find a house to donate that to. If anyone's interested and is in the area or willing to make a drive, we could probably work something out. So blackberry's going to stay because there's no thorns. We don't want to prick little fingers as much as possible. If it happens, it's a learning experience, but also maybe avoid some of the more obvious things. Tomatoes are kind of getting ready to get pulled up. There's a couple ripe ones here and there. Pepper plants are, again, not really worried about the cold because they seem to be blowing up. Our neglected corner of cherry tomatoes, there might be like almost a gallon worth of fresh, ripe tomatoes. It's almost too hard to come in here and pick because it's just so dense. And really, oh gosh, we could come out here basically every other day and get a quart of these tomatoes, which is incredible. And the loofahs, man, they're just loving it. They're blowing up. I don't know if you can see up in there, but there's like 8 in there. And we got this massive loofah. Like what in the world? So anyways, super happy with how this year's gone. Learned a lot, I think. We have a lot of things that we want to come back and do better next year, do differently. And we'll put together some of our thoughts more later at another time and kind of share with that. But all right, so I said this was enough, but one last thing. I want to show you guys a little bit of what I'm about to work on right now, and that is cleaning up the pepper plot, which is here, and then cleaning out the last of the carrots. And I'm actually going to be planting garlic today because Halloween is apparently the day that you plant your garlic bulbs, or so says our friend, which he was right last year, so must be onto something. And here's another glimpse of what happened to the neglected tomato plants. It's kind of ridiculous. So, all right. Shout out to my Toledo crew who got this tent for my wife and I for our wedding. It finally went up for the second time in our marriage, and it has been up for a couple months because the kids and the neighbor kids love to play with it. And I'll end on this note. Here's our girls. These girls do a lot of work for us. Not only do they provide us with so many eggs and so much food, but they also are like our trash can. They take care of a ton of organic matter for us and turn it into gold, which is right down there, you can see. So thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Justin and Lucy. It's great to have you guys. And there's our doggo. He's crazy. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much. Bye now.